The Vermont Cynic is one of the most lauded student papers in the country, except of course that it's actually on your phone, except this month when one of only 2 printed issues comes out. We're talking about it with an editor today on Across the Fence. Hello, Vermont. As a former magazine editor, print is near and dear to my heart. So when we sat down with the Cynic editors last semester to talk about digital publishing, I made a note to self to follow up when the next printed edition came out. There are 2 each year. The winter issue tackles sex, and in spring, drugs. But if you think you know what that means, you're probably in for a surprise. Joining me today to talk about sex, drugs, and student newspapers in 2026 is Grace Wang, the editor-in-chief of the Vermont Cynic. Grace, welcome back.
Thank you.
It's really nice to have you here again.
I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to talk about this print issue. Like I said, I love print. Also, one of the reasons why I really enjoy talking to students is because when I did my master's work at UVM, in part, I was working with ideas and themes about emerging adulthood. And so emerging adulthood, if you've never heard of this terminology before, it's this period between 18 and 25 years old. And it's when, young people go through this intense identity exploration. So it's all about forming your sense of self, and experimentation, exploration, all of that is a part of this journey, which I guess is my way of saying that sex and drugs feels like it's very on brand developmentally because, we were all young once. These are big things that are a part, I think, of that forming of sense of self when students are, becoming their adult selves. So that was what I thought about it. I was wondering, I know you didn't choose the themes yourself, but why do you think sex and drugs work well as themes for organizing these print issues?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that when our writers are coming into college and joining the Cynic, it's a club, anyone can join at any time. And I think that as they're figuring themselves out, these are the ideas that are really salient in their minds. And they are interacting with sex and drugs in various capacities throughout their time at UVM. And I think that I love being able to capture what each class is really focused on. Because if you look back, we've been doing a sex issue and a drug issue for many, many years now, and also universities across the country do a similar thing. They have a sex issue and a drug issue. And I think looking at what the general cultural zeitgeist is around each of these topics really can tell you a lot about that time period and how young people are really facing challenges in the world.
And how they interpret it.
Yeah.
Because what I also think is, so your writers really dig into the themes too, and it goes in some very interesting directions. So we brought a few headlines up, and I'll read some of these. So for example, a look into substance misuse in rural Vermont. Okay, not what I was expecting. UVM should enforce its tobacco-free campus policy. Very insightful, very interesting. Who can afford to get high? Which is actually a really interesting question now that we're all visiting dispensaries and things. And then this one was great. The age of Ozempic, how GLP-1 drugs are shaping the conversation on weight loss. So you think drugs, and you might have an entirely different picture in your mind of what the students are interested in talking about inside that theme. And then you get this.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about any of these?
Yeah, absolutely. The piece on how rural drug misuse is happening in Vermont was really just, we start working on pieces as soon as the semester starts. So in January, we start talking about what things are gonna look like. And Anna Bouchard, the writer of that piece, she's from Vermont. She was really interested in covering this topic. And I think that we just found a lot of really interesting things that I think UVM students don't always interact with, because I think campus can kind of be sort of a silo, and Burlington itself can be a silo as well. And kind of going outside of the bounds of where UVM is and really interacting with this place that we're all living in but might not fully understand. I I think was really important for this issue, and I'm really glad that we got to do that.
Yeah. Well, so you said that you started this process back in January. So obviously it takes a long time to get all of this together. What's that pitch process like? How do you decide what makes the cut?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a club, anybody can join. So as the sections come together for the first time in the spring, I ask section editors to just start asking people if they're thinking about drugs, like what would they want to write, what ideas might they have, and then editors will come into our deadline meetings and let me and our managing editor Liliana know kind of what they're thinking about, and then we talk through the piece if the pitch makes sense. We don't have any formal pitching process, so people don't come in with like written out ideas, but if we think that the story has bones, then we'll like give it the green light and ask people to start working on it. And then it goes through many iterations of edits, and we kind of see if it'll fit.
And I liked when you and I were talking about this before, you said that, especially thinking about sex or drugs, and that there are pitches that sometimes students will come in with, and it's like once they start to think about putting it in print, the longevity of the issue, having their name associated with it, that sometimes, some of the ideas sort of naturally trickle away.
Yeah. I think a lot of what comes in, I think our writers are fabulous and they're thinking about like really amazing topics all of the time. So they don't come in too rough, but I think that sometimes people will like either try and go and get those interviews for a piece that they're working on, and they're like, oh, nobody wants to talk to me about this. So that is often an issue with these topics. And I think that it helps to kind of shape the magazine into something that like people really care about what they're writing about. Well,
and the readers really care about it. You also said, in fact, I think it's in your editor's note, that sometimes people will take these, that this becomes like artwork, right? That folks want to have on their dorm room walls. Like, is that a thing? Do people hold on to these?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this surprised us earlier this semester. We saw a video from like a Instagram reel that somebody had posted for like a ad campaign, I guess. And they went to UVM, and on their wall was one of the sex issues from last year. And that was just so awesome. And I think that like I really love that we're doing print again. I love that it's in a magazine format, and I love that the pages are interesting enough to people that they want to hang on to them. And I hope people cut them up and put them on their walls. Like that's so fun.
Kind of commemorative of a moment in time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, at this point, I think it's pretty fair to say that the Cynic is almost more like a multimedia platform than it is, it's not just a paper, right? I mean, you're doing digital, you've got print issues, you also have a podcast.
Yes, yeah, our podcast, so we have multiple podcasts. We have at least 3 that are being produced right now. Our editor is Charlotte King. She's absolutely amazing. And we have been getting national recognition for our podcast. We won first place best podcast at the College Media Association Apple Awards this spring. And I love our podcast. I think that they sound great. And we cover a variety of different topics on there. It's not just like one thing.
How frequently do those go out?
They go out, it depends on the production schedule for our editors, but a couple times a semester.
Yeah, well, so now you're just layering in different ways too of bringing stories and storytelling too to the campus community, which I think is pretty cool. And so you mentioned, yes, you are getting national attention because you got that Apple Award for podcasting, but you also didn't you get another Apple Award for Best News Website? Second place, Best New Website?
Second place, Best News Website. Yeah, that was super exciting. Also from the CMAs. They have a convention in New York City in the spring. It's in Times Square, and we got awards 2 years ago, and then this year as well.
And then also a number of awards from the New England Newspaper and Press Association.
Yes,
A number of these. In fact, I think you got one.
Yes, that's a regional competition that looks at all of the colleges in the Northeast from Boston to up here to Maine. And we did pretty well at those awards, and I'm really, really proud of our staff. We put in a lot of work, and I'm glad that it paid off.
Yeah. Well, how long have you been with the paper? Yourself personally?
Yeah, I've been with the paper since the first day of my freshman year. I joined as a culture staff writer and a staff photographer, and then I became culture editor in my sophomore year, and then co-editor-in-chief my junior year, and then now just solo editor-in-chief.
That's pretty remarkable.
It's super fun.
Well, and is that typical? Because we remember when we had more of the Cynic staff here, that had been a similar story among many of the different editors. So people tend to kind of come in early and then stick around. But are there a lot of people joining each year too, like new people joining the masthead?
Yeah, absolutely. It can vary because, I mean, we have no application process. Anybody can just walk in and start writing. And if they're committed and they want to keep doing work, then there's no shortage of higher up positions that people can go for. And yeah, so the masthead this semester particularly changed a lot. There was a bunch of turnover, just people graduating, people moving on, but there's people come in all kinds of semesters, but yeah, I think a lot of people join right when they get here. They know that they want to start working on writing some things. And
yeah, well, it's a great way to be able to continue to flex that muscle. If it was, say, something you started doing student journalism when you were in high school, maybe, people who are exploring it. Do you have at this point in the semester, do you know who is going to be taking the reins next year?
Yes, yeah. We're ironing out some details for some sections, but mostly we have it locked down, and I'm really excited for what's coming next. Yeah.
That's great. Well, okay, is it going to be hard to say goodbye? Because you're graduating.
Yeah.
And where are you off to?
I'm staying in Burlington. I'm working a remote job.
And it has nothing to do in journalism?
Yeah, nothing at all. It's environmental consulting. So I'll really miss being able to have just this platform and an outlet for writing, and also just the ability that journalism gives you to explore your community and find out about things that you care about, just is super beautiful. But I think that I'm really grateful for the skill that I've learned, and just being able to interview and talk to people and try and understand something that I don't know anything about. And knowing that that's a possibility, that you can just ask people questions.
Well, thank you very much for sharing it with us. Real quick, give us the website for the Cynic where people can take a look at the digital issue.
Yeah, www.vtcynic.com.
There it is.
And under print issues, you can check out what we're doing.
Super. Well, Grace, thank you so much for joining me. Yeah. And as always, thank you, Vermont, for learning and exploring with me today. And thanks to the team that makes Across the Fence possible. I'm Amy Finley. This is Across the Fence. Come back and let's learn and explore again tomorrow.